Oh no, I do DNVR draft pod. That's what I do. Henry always looks at me in shock. We, of course, as always, presented to you by the good folks at Raising Cane's. They'll have some swag at Breckenridge Brewery when we're doing the live show next Thursday, just a week from today. What a time to be alive. It's here. And it's glorious. I love it so much. And yeah, all you draft pods out there, go check out Raising Cane's. Favorite dipping sauce at Raising Cane's?
Probably the cane sauce would be number one on my list.
Yeah. That's right. Who was telling us about the Raising Cane's Sando? Was that Jake?
That's me, man. That's the pro move. You take the tenders, toast. You put them in the Texas toast. You get a little extra slaw, an extra sauce instead of the slaw, extra bread. It's working good. I mean, you could put coleslaw in there, but the highlight is the chicken fingers. So
yes,
chicken fingers, not chicken tenders.
Yeah, tenders are for losers.
Right.
Tenders are for the tenders.
Right. And we're ready to talk some defense. I feel like we've really talked a lot of offense, quarterbacks. I guess we've touched on quarterbacks a little bit.
We love touching the quarterbacks. Yep.
Wide receivers, famously.
Yeah.
I feel like we've touched on tight ends quite a bit. I certainly have given out some great takes and analysis on the offensive line. Defense needs its shine today.
Yes, it does.
And it's the front seven specifically. Run stoppers, pass rushers,
wow,
3 down players.
Ooh.
What else are we looking for, Henry?
Cover guys, cover linebackers. Yeah.
Cover edge rushers?
I don't think I care if they cover, but I'm not.
D lineman? Cover D lineman?
Really don't care.
Okay.
Really don't care.
That
Although
might
there
be
is
a
that
trait.
small chance, you bring in new DB's coach, Wisconsin, Jim Leonard.
Jim
you bring in
Leonard.
Jim Leonard,
Jim Leonard.
whose Wisconsin defense is all about dropping those defensive linemen out, surprising those dumb college quarterbacks. Maybe you see a little bit of that.
I could see it.
I could see it.
I could see it a lot.
I still don't think I care how much a defensive lineman can cover, though.
Biggest need of these 3 in the front 7. Edge rusher, interior defensive line, linebacker. J-Mike, how do you see it?
I think it's interior defensive line, just with how they got blown up consistently against the run all last year. To me, that I just can't sit through 17 more games of that. I know that they've got plenty of holes, but it's just enough's enough. Fix this one spot.
I think it's linebacker. I think
With
that
Josie leaving.
with Josie Leavin being
Important
replaced by that it is important. Got Alex Singleton. You've got that guy whose name. What is his name? Barton, right? Cody Barton. Yes, it is Cody Barton. There we go. Yeah. Speaking of cover linebackers, he's kind of that sort of guy, but I'm not sure that he has any business starting in the NFL.
Linebacker I could see. And yet edge may be the one you see mocked to them the most.
So the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
I want to start with edge because that's the most exciting of these groups. I think defensive tackles is the one that's going to have the most interesting conversations, and linebacker is going to kind of be like, okay.
Yeah.
So let's start with edge. We're going to go through these 3 positions and, give out our top 3 guys and a couple of our,
Sneaky dogs.
sneaky dogs. J-Mike's going to get 3 because we already know one of his sneaky dogs. Why don't you start us off, J-Mike? Who do you have slotted in at 3?
I've got Jared Verse of Florida State. I think he's the most just overtly powerful of the edge rushers, like just a straight bull rush going downhill. I think he's impactful against the run.
Yes.
I also don't...
Stands out as the top guy.
Yes, he's the best out of these guys.
Defense, yes.
I think he's an effective pass rusher, but I don't think he's as polished when you look at some of the moves, some of the hand movement compared to these other top guys. And to me, I wonder how much more is there. Like what is that next gear from him? I'm not really sure it's there.
Almost poor man's Bradley Chubb.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly one of those power rushers. And I think that's what turns me off of him. Might be too strong of a phrase, but it feels like you rarely see, one of the guys who winds up being an all-pro or, NFL sack leader, anything like that. It's rare that it's a power rusher, it feels like. It's rare that it's somebody whose best move is going through you. It seems like there's just a little bit higher ceiling when it comes to the guys who bend around the edge. And that's the concern. But I mean,
or can at least combine some length, strength with explosion.
You just need a little more versatility.
Khalil Mack, phenomenal power rusher and power moves.
But you respect him around the edge.
Athlete, right? Like a guy who could play outside linebacker in a 4-3, not even an edge, could play linebacker. So there's more than just being your standard power.
When he's so
100%.
quick laterally, and he has some you look at some of the stuff Mac does with his hands and like the hesitation and getting around the side. Like he's not just running you over.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. He's actually, and I mean, look, man, I think this draft is very unique in that it gives you, I think we've had some prospects with more prospect fatigue than we've dealt with in years past.
Well, it makes sense. It's a lot of guys
thing.
we've been talking about for 3 years because of this COVID stuff.
It's COVID and it's the NIL.
Yeah.
I swear, pre-NIL, Jared Verse, he's in the draft almost certainly last year.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's a former, FCS guy, makes the jump, standout year. Now you get your bag.
Right.
Florida State gives you the bag. You're able to even, he's probably a second, third round pick last year, but it makes sense to jump. Now you get the NIL bag. You come back, you're going to be a first round pick. It's working out for college football. I think it's made it more fun. But like you're saying, we're just, when you talk about some of these guys for 3 years, you can kind of go in circles. And at some point, it's just like, well, yeah, I'm a little bored with him.
Oh, for sure. And he is, of these top guys, the boring one. Seems silly to say, right? He's a lit pass rusher who'll get you double-digit sacks and can play really good against the run and has some nice moves, some nice get-off. Compared to a Chop Robinson and a Leitu Latu, a Dallas Turner, he is boring.
Yep. I totally agree. But I do think, by far the highest floor. I think the fact that he can defend the run the way that he does, worst case scenario, he's a 2-down, 3-4 outside linebacker, and he's really good at it. In the Broncos system, of course. And then on top of that, you throw in the pass rush stuff. You throw in, maybe they're... Just how good is the upside as a run defender? It might be pretty freaky good.
Well, and Jose
stand-up edge, is that a concern in this scheme? Is he because he's a hand in the ground guy,
I think that is where he's at his best. That is where he's at his best. And that does make him a better fit with another team. But edge rushers are no longer playing every single snap. You can pick and choose your spots. There's plenty of need for a nickel run defender also. There's plenty of first down nickel snaps where you're not pinning your ears back and trying to get to the quarterback. He fills that role.
And speed is kind of the one thing you do have. I mean, you could make the argument that he is the role they don't have out of those guys.
It's true.
Yeah.
He's kind of the
Cooper-y,
type of edge you've been... Right, Cooper is the one guy. Yeah.
But, I mean, this is still bigger and stronger and more physical than Cooper.
Yeah, I mean,
he's
he'd probably be a day
blend.
one... Like you're saying, I mean, come in and play first or second and third down, depending on the situation. But
is that who you have third, Hank? Because he is third for me as
I have
well.
him number 2.
You do?
I have him number 2.
Who's in that third slot for you?
Number 3 for me is Leitu Latu. Again, but they're just very different. They're almost opposite players. In that Leitu Latu is an NFL pass rusher. He's so refined. He's productive. I have no doubt that he can be a third down guy in the NFL. I think the questions come in as a run defender. Is he just not built to be a run defending edge rusher, and how does that limit him?
Lighter and length deficient.
Yep, definitely. And on top of that, maybe not so explosive too. So I don't look at him and say he's watch out. He might be putting up 16 sacks at some point. I don't think he's quite that caliber. I think it's more likely that you're playing with that 8, 10, maybe 12 sacks. And if you do that, it's great. But he might just be like a number 2 edge rusher. And there's
ceiling for a lot of these guys is a bit of a question.
Yep.
And it's why a lot of people have Dallas Turner at 1. Who slotted in at 2 for me. I mentioned Verse, and Latu is my 1. And that's because Turner's really exciting. That motor, the pursuit ability, the coverage ability, the sideline to sideline stuff, just the overwhelming athleticism, good size, what have you. Good motor against the run, right? Maybe not the power that Verse has, but I think in the right role as a stand-up
He's got good
edge.
instincts too. He's rangy sideline to sideline.
And I mean, coming downhill, right? He gets the job done. That's where he's at his best. Read, react. Boom.
You also trust him more if he did have to drop back than some of these guys. He would be the best suited out of them.
Yep. Oh, 100%. And that's something through the years, the Anthony Barrs, the TJ Watts, there's just been a lot of edges who you're kind of like, oh, that's nice. That coverage ability is nice. And you kind of just put it, it's more of a tiebreaker. What I've found is when you have that in your bag and you add size, athleticism, some pass rush upside, sometimes that shit pops and you turn into an absolute superstar.
Yeah.
And that's why I have him as my 1. I have Latu too.
The ceiling's massive on Turner.
I just think
the play in, play out, though, leaves me wanting a lot more, man. And there's some... Tavon Walker, different role, bigger guy, more of a hand in the ground, maybe even 5 technique in a 3-4. Same kind of thing, right? He gets me excited. He checks off a lot of boxes, but then... I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of projection. I wonder, is this a Leonard Floyd? Is this a guy who the light might not come on till the second contract when he's at another team? And even if he were to quote-unquote drop to the Broncos, mixed feelings on that pick. I'd have some mixed feelings on that pick. But, J-Man, continue why you like him and why he's your 1. Is he your 1, Hank?
He's my 1.
Okay.
I think he has the highest ceiling in terms of like what could be unleashed. I will admit that there were times, especially as a Bama guy and watching these games and having a rooting interest, where I would get frustrated, where I felt like he would kind of disappear for a quarter or 2.
Yeah, it's legit.
He played really well in the playoff. So, just trying to give him credit. It's not like he just disappears in big games or anything like that.
Stock was up this season from like the first month to the last month. Like a lot of the Bama trench players, defense and offense, you saw some massive improvement.
Oh, I mean, it was a rough September was not fun as an Alabama supporter.
That's correct.
I also think that he probably gets... I think the perception of what he did was impacted slightly by people having such high expectations after what Will Anderson did. Because Will Anderson was one of those guys that would just take over, 3 sack. Like there would just be these stretches where you could feel it. And I don't know if he has had that in college, but I think he can have it in the NFL. I think he's the most versatile. And while I do think that Latu is by far the best just pure pass rush of this class,
best
and like right
moves.
now could get double-digit sacks in the NFL
Motor,
as a rookie.
Plays with leverage, good combo of athleticism and get off. Yeah.
I think he might be a one-down player though, and I worry about that.
You think he's more of a third down specialist, huh?
I worry. I mean, I'm not trying to guarantee, but I do think that's within the realm of possibility for him.
That's a big part of the conversation with all 3 of these positions.
Yep.
We're going to talk a lot about 2 down, 1 down, 3 down, nickel specialist. I mean, right? Like,
he's not going to set the edge for you against the run. There weren't a ton of moments where I felt like he was really blowing stuff up in the backfield. Even when it comes to his instincts, I don't think he's as natural out there as Anderson or as, Verse against the run. There's a lot to like as a pass rusher, and that ceiling is so high. I just wonder if he's not in the right setting, it could be one of those situations where it's like you're parking a Ferrari in, a trailer park, because you're just not going to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And with the Broncos, you do need to be a little more picky, because you do have those.
You don't have the draft capital.
You have that. You don't have the draft cap, and you have those guys with the upside, right? Like if you don't feel like he's a significant upgrade on a Benito, a Jonathan Cooper, a Drew Sanders, I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, then you almost don't want to pick that guy up, because he's just going to plug the other guy's ability to develop and get more snaps and learn on the job. I want to get into our sneaky dogs.
Sneaky dogs.
Can I do Turner real quick?
Yeah.
Please do that.
The thing is, like, I totally agree. He disappears at times. What kind of brought me back to him and made him the number one is that
Browning.
He's still
Thank you, Jose.
He still led the SEC in sacks. Like, despite the thoughts that it feels like he could have done more. Like, 11 sacks is a solid season for a college player, especially a 21-year-old, and especially one who's so raw.
Anderson stuff came in to hurt him. It's like, it
was
almost
like 17 or 16.
If he didn't have a 20-sack season, everybody was going to be like, wow, that was, I mean, what happened, man?
Like, the production is good.
And what's funny is with Will Anderson, we were talking about, well, is Will Anderson a lead? Is he Myles Garrett or the Bosa's or a tier below? And now it's like, boy, we don't have a Will Anderson.
No,
so we're like, there's maybe an elite tier that Will wasn't quite, was on the verge of, but not a lock. And then there's the Will Anderson tier. You don't have anyone in those top two tiers. You're down to the next tier, right? No one with higher than a first-round grade for me.
But if you were to say that somebody from this draft class is going to lead the NFL in sacks one year, I'm putting all my money on Dallas Turner being that guy.
That's where Latu separates myself. I do think there's a path where he could do that.
Really?
I do too. I mean, especially if he truly is not a one-down guy, if he can be out there a little more situationally.
That bag of pass rush moves.
He does have the bag.
The get-off. It's,
but
what about if Dallas Turner gets a bag?
No, Dallas
That's
Turner,
the thing.
I mean, that's the ceiling. That's the comps were TJ Watt,
Yeah.
And he has all
Micah
the
Parsons
athletic
might
traits.
be the comp too.
No, and
There's
I've been hesitant to throw that one out there. But
I don't see it.
Well, he doesn't have the quite same freak explosiveness, but I mean, there's not anything he can't do out there is really what I'm trying to say.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So let's get into our sneaky dogs. But first, from J Mike here.
We've been in our bag all draft season long. Get in your bag with Raising Cane's.
Let's go.
Make a pit stop at Raising Cane's for craveable hand-battered chicken fingers that are always cooked to order and made just for you. Race in for delicious chicken finger meals served up fast. Cane sauce, you cannot beat it. Make sure you get a little bit of extra. You're always going to want more. For cooked-to-order hand-battered chicken fingers, race into Raising Cane's, turbocharge your chicken fingers, and get them even faster by ordering online at raisingcanes.com or through their mobile app, Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. One love. Also want to shout out the homies at Breck Brew. Breckenridge Brewery has been with us since day one. Join us at the Breck Brew Farmhouse for our live DNVR Broncos draft show on April 25th. Hank's going to be there. RK's going to be there. Super Bowl 50 champion, Todd Davis is going to be there. Dre will be there. I'll be there. It's going to be awesome. A burger and a house beer are included with your ticket price before and after the show. You'll be able to have a meet and greet, take pics with the DNVR crew if you would like to. We're going to be providing giveaways. Raising Cane's will have reps to hand out swag. It's going to be awesome. And make sure you check out that Breck Beer locator at breckbrew.com to find a brew near you.
Nicely done, J Mike. And then, of course, Holy Diver. I like my first choice as a dominant 3-4 D end. I think that's objectively the biggest need here.
Yep. I think if you could get that.
We were having conversations at the office that they were kind of like overly DJ Jones reliant last year. That when DJ Jones was not on the field, that run defense was trouble.
Yeah. And I mean, they ran into so many different issues. Well, the big thing was they had Jonathan Harris. They thought Jonathan Harris was going to be a guy for them because he played so well in training camp, and it was like this breakout for a 27-year-old. And he was a starter at the beginning of the season at he would have been the 3 technique, and things really didn't go well. And so pretty quickly lost a starting job. And so then you bump DJ from nose to 3 technique, and that was the first domino. And then none of the other dominoes fell the way you wanted them to. So yeah, they were too DJ Jones reliant. He didn't have his best year. Zach Allen also.
That was my next thing. Zach Allen also didn't exist until week 12.
Exactly. Didn't. I mean, but
slow build.
Also, you look at his stats versus his stats in Arizona.
It's
pretty good season from Zach Allen, and so you wonder what exactly you have there. And they did a good job. Like Malcolm Roach, if you put him in there, 40-50% of the snaps, rundowns, he can handle some things. He's versatile.
But this is why you need a dominant 3-down guy.
And that's where if you just have that guy, then you have him, Jones, and Zach Allen. And if you get a number 1 and those are your number 2 and number 3, you're in great shape. And this whole rotation just fits the way it should.
Completely agree.
Rookie defensive linemen scare me. Like I think that they're not. You're not. There's a learning curve there. I feel like.
Yeah, there is.
Exactly.
Malik Jackson, not until the 4th contract year. I mean,
anywhere
I think
in the trenches, man. You look at the O-line, D-line, even tight end compared to
Draymond was like that, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's big men. They're slower to develop.
Well, and you're used to being able to always be the most physically explosive, empowering dude, even at the collegiate level. I know a lot of these guys are coming from the Big 12, Big 10, SEC, but still, they're the top echelon of guys, and now all of a sudden, we're all the same size.
Sneaky dogs on the edge.
I mean, Mo Kamara, obviously. We're going to talk about him a ton on the Rams pod, so I'm not going to get into him a ton, but I think he is a day 2 pick, as does Daniel Jeremiah. A little bit of a tease there. We'll get into that on the Rams pod. Tune in. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, right after this.
Jonah Ellis would be my other out of Utah, and I've been pretty consistent with that. I love his motor. I love his versatility, and I know that the traits aren't quite at that of some of these other guys, but I think he's taken up. He tested well.
Tested really well. Both those guys, 4 or 5 flats.
And it validated what you watched on the screen, which was nice. Like they're not
the production
the biggest guys in the world, but they've got great instincts. They're really refined. And they just make plays. And at some point, like the value you can get with one of these guys in the late 2nd, 3rd, early 4th round is really intriguing to me, especially for a team like Denver, who's, like trying to maximize the biggest haul here with not a ton of capital.
Hankster.
My first one is...
Those are great picks, by the way.
Braden McGregor. Michigan.
You had him in the 7th round.
I did in my mock draft I put up there.
I told you about him.
Did you?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, and then you wrote the mock. We didn't have a chance to talk about it. We talked about the mock, but I wasn't able to mention it.
No.
It's like number 17 for Michigan, coming off the edge.
No, he's a freak. I got Yaya to pull up a picture there.
Great motor. Look,
the guy is a freak. The guy's a freak. Like he's he's 6'5" and a quarter, weighed in at 257 at the combine. He was actually the number 1 recruit for Michigan in their 2020 class. So that was the class like Blake Corum and Zach Zinter, whom we like, and a bunch of those names that you would recognize. They just won a national championship. He was the top recruit because he's a big old guy who is like, has all the athletic tools, all that sort of stuff. Maybe not the burstiest, but that's not really his game.
Maybe not the bendiest.
Not the bendiest, but became a starter this year. Deep rotation, so he still didn't play a lot of snaps. Only 4.5 sacks. It's not a whole bunch. 9 tackles for loss, not a whole bunch. But you just watch him on the edge, especially on the running game. He makes some pretty crazy plays.
No, and he's fun.
He's
like,
very
he's
fun.
a legit player.
He is a legit player. And that's where I think for the Broncos in particular, you got Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning, whose contracts expire at the end of the year. I think bringing him in, he's still only 22. Even if he doesn't get on the field that much this year, having him on the roster going into next year as somebody you can just play in your base defense in that 3-4, it just gives you so much more flexibility. And I think there's some real upside there, but just because of the size and strength combination.
Love it. Who else?
My second one's Gabriel Murphy.
Oh my gosh, I had him too. The edge from UCLA. He's fantastic. Dominated the Buffs. Like, I mean, right? Like he's doing the watch thing. Like that game was just... Gabriel Murphy was on fire.
To be fair, edges looked pretty good against that.
Mo also went off. Jonah Ellis probably had pretty productive. And no, he just broke out this season, 16 tackles for a loss, 8 sacks. He's also my sneaky dog, so I just wanted to share that data point.
Go ahead. 2-year starter. Where did he transfer in from? I'm blanking on that. Was he Green Wave or something? No, it wasn't Green Wave. It was a color and a... What's the green school in Texas?
Mean Green?
Not Marshall.
North Texas?
I think it's North Texas. I think he was North Texas.
I could see that.
It was North Texas. It's right there in front of me. North Texas, 7 sacks, transfers, goes to UCLA, doesn't play much his first year, but like you said, breakout this year, 12 sacks. Just
opposite Latu.
Yeah, exactly.
Tested really well, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 4.68 40, 75-inch wingspan, solid, not special.
No, very good. And I mean, there's some top guys we haven't had a chance to talk on. Braylon Trice from Washington, Chop Robinson, a favorite of mine, couldn't crack my top 3. Worry about some size there, but if you're looking for Micah Parsons, guys, there might be something there. Chris Broswell, really Dallas Turner's other teammate, would be the only guy to really contend from a draft standpoint to be the SEC sack leader as far as
he'll go higher than people think too.
I think so too. Marshawn Nealand, Western Michigan Broncos, came around, got a Senior Bowl invite. I was underwhelmed, but as I've gotten into his tape, tested just incredibly well. He's got good length. His arms are really long, and you see that, and he's got a great motor against the run. Really good and kind of finding a direct path, shooting gaps, getting in the backfield, and some really intriguing length, get off, bend combination for him as a pass rusher. So I really like him. Would love a look at him later on. And Javonte John Baptiste, Ohio State transfer. You know how loaded they are year in, year out on the edges. Goes to Notre Dame. I actually thought he played quite well in that Notre Dame Ohio State game. He's shown some flashes, had some decent production. He's a guy you could find later like McGregor and be a decent piece with good size. Checks off a lot of boxes, right? Maybe not an all-world pass rusher, but also gives you a little more on the run defense than some of these guys might give you. So there's a name for you right there.
Cool. That's a good group. We gave out like 15 names.
That was a lot of names.
Interior D-line?
Let's do it to it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Starting at 3.
Sure.
Okay.
I've got Braden Fisk of Florida State as my number 3.
Another former Western Michigan guy.
Yeah. He's quick and powerful.
Oh.
I think he's like dominant against the run.
A little bowling ball.
Yeah. The versatility isn't quite there. And I think, when you look at some of these other top guys, like
3-4 fit's going to be tough, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a little length deficient. So he truly is a 3 tech you want inside, shooting gaps and getting in the backfield.
But I think he's going to make
extraordinary.
What he does really well. He just needs to be in the right system.
Yep. He didn't make my top 3.
I love him.
It's 24, like you said, a little length deficient. Like,
I love him
athletically, but yeah, he was one of my 2 guys I like who weren't in my top 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's your 3?
My 3 is, I think I went to Vondre.
He is my 3.
Yeah, I went to Vondre Sweat with my 3. Obviously,
stock's cooling a little bit.
Recent developments with the he wasn't DUI, was he?
I thought it was.
Was it DUI?
Was something along those lines.
He also
it was
tested
one of those.
terribly.
He did test terribly
because he's ginormous.
366 pounds is what the combine would say. Yeah, I mean, he's like your true just big old plugger with a little bit of explosiveness up in those A gaps too.
3 downs.
3rd and 4, yeah. Third and 5, and you get to go dime.
DWI.
Let him plug up those A gaps, and you can justify putting DBs behind him and not have to worry about a little 3rd down draw. But probably not. I mean, you would hope for somebody who could actually get to the quarterback.
The thing about his impact on 3rd down is look how he benefited Byron Murphy. I mean, just look.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or how much he's freeing up a finesse linebacker like Jalen Ford behind.
Yep.
He feels like a guy where it's I understand all the arguments against, especially now with the current legal situation. I think it probably drops him to day 2 for sure, potentially even day 3.
Day 3, yeah.
Yep.
That said, he's just one of those. He's like the best argument for like, okay, but did you actually watch him play football? And I worry a little bit about. I'll be honest, guys that test poorly, especially as poorly as he did. I question work ethic because I've seen that come into play before where guys are unprepared. How is that going to translate? Right? Or are you going to be a guy that can be trusted to really take advantage of this top end potential? But
he's blown the draft process. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. He's a 3rd round pick at best now.
Had an all-time season though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and watch someone like the Chiefs be like,
great call.
Yeah.
And it's also like you look at a guy like him and I think these are the guys that NFL evaluations are all about. It's about just having bigger dudes who can match the athleticism of the other smaller guy.
Yep.
That's how you're going to win in the NFL.
Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, unanimous All-American. Like he was really, really good.
Yeah.
You can have all the concerns about the other stuff. He cut weight to get to 366, and people are worried he's not going to be able to keep that weight off. Like,
No, he might be playing at 4 Bills.
but also,
But he can carry it.
and what if it works?
The thing, he's like legit big.
He's big.
I mean,
massive.
like that.
I wonder what was
He wouldn't look disgusting
6'4"
or
and a half.
super out of place at 400 because he's that big. He could carry it.
No, it's like it's like a true dominant 5 in the NBA where he's 6'8", 400 pounds, but I mean, like Charles Barkley was 400 pounds at one point.
Yeah.
He carried it.
It's the off the field. It's the 3 down. That concerns me. And Fisk would be third for me too because I just love him. I think ultimately interior penetrators are the guys that matter the most.
It's fair.
Fisk for the Broncos, though, that 3-4 fit really concerns you. It really concerns you. And there are guys who we won't talk about, Chris Jennings, Brandon Dorless, who would fit that in particular way more. Number 2, Hank, you give it to us.
I went Johnny Newton. Maybe a little undersized for his role. Well, actually, let me double check.
God, he plays with
304.
such great leverage.
Came in at 304, which I just kind of thought that he was a little bit bigger than that. But yeah, I mean, again, it's the leverage, it's the angles. It's a guy who knows what he's doing. Like you can run all the different stunts, you can do all that sort of stuff.
His run defense is awesome. For
Exactly. Like you want him shooting some gaps. He'll definitely be a gap shooter. I mean,
I
don't know.
Yeah.
Just explosive, productive.
He gets his hands on you in a hurry too.
Yeah.
Impacts the
7.5
backfield
sacks.
a lot. I mean, he's just moving that fucking pocket around. His thing to me is like, what's the ceiling? Like, and you know, if you think he is a double-digit sack getter at this position, you're talking about him as a top 8 pick, right?
Yeah.
But I just don't. I don't
know
think
if it's
that's
quite
the ceiling
there.
grade.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but he is my top guy.
Okay.
I fucking love him.
He's just a
He
really
checks off
good
all the
football
boxes.
player.
He does
And
really
if he's
good. He's really
15 pounds
He's really
heavier
good.
and
Exactly.
1 inch taller, then nobody's going to question any of this. So,
He's really good.
7.5 sacks from the inside's pretty crazy too.
while being
No,
the
and
entire focal
How many,
point,
in 11 starts.
teams are scheming against him.
That
Yep.
Illinois defense last year, the Illini, all of a sudden, they're like contenders in the Big Ten and all those DBs drafted high. He was the guy who was coming back the next year who was like, damn, but Johnny Newton did a lot for them up front. And, you know, I think this
Made
year
those
was
corners a lot of
smidge
money the year
underwhelmed.
before.
Yeah, he sure did. So, no, he's my top guy.
Only
I think there's
21.
Just everything about him was like, yeah.
Who's 2 for you then?
No, I like it. It's Byron Murphy, a guy who I was on very early. I mean, you know, it's the 3 interior penetrators, right?
Yeah.
Johnny, Murphy, Fisk. I just value that skill above all else. Murphy more inconsistent than Newton to me, especially as a penetrator, but he's got the ability to just make a move, and next thing you know, he's in the backfield. I mean,
Yep.
he's a handful, but I think against tippy top O linemen, I trust Johnny Newton to have more impact, and I think maybe Johnny has a smidge more of a ceiling, but they're right. I mean, they're right there.
And you just go through
They
and
are
it's
right there.
6 foot, half an inch, 297 pounds, 32-inch arms. Like, you just would like a little bit more
Yeah.
in terms of like the size.
That's true with my entire top 3.
I think that's why there's no top 10 picks there too.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
if any
correct.
of these guys were just bigger,
Correct.
longer, whatever.
And they're not Aaron Donald elite, right?
No, they
to
are
where
not.
you're like, shit, I'll take the undersized because.
Yep.
I put Murphy 1. I just think when you mentioned having that ability to just kind of shuck a dude and all of a sudden he's in the backfield, I really think as like a guy that's just going to disrupt up the middle, I think he can be a really effective pass rusher. And as much as I like Newton, I wonder if maybe Murphy with his explosiveness has another level that we haven't quite seen.
I could see it.
But I went back
could
and
see it.
forth, and I think I flipped the 2 about 4 times. At one point, I had Fisk get 1 just because I was like, well, I can't decide. And then I was like, all right, well, his traits aren't quite as good as these other guys. But I'm with you. I think these are the 3 most consistent disruptors that don't have the question marks off the field and you know, the poor testing and
Yeah,
whatnot.
that's fair.
Who's one for you?
Murphy is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Kind of predictable, but it makes sense with this class. There's really only like 4 guys. I mean, I like Chris Jenkins from Michigan. If we're going to throw out like a guy later
Clever.
on
Yeah.
who's like could just be an impactful run stopper. I don't see him doing much as a pass rusher, but maybe.
I think this is where you should see Darius Robinson too, as more of an interior guy than not. And those are guys who in a 3-4 are very intriguing. If this was Broncos specific, maybe only one of our top 3 make it in, you know? Maybe
Broncos are in
only
such a weird
Murphy's
spot. I was going to say probably
That's-
Murphy.
That's where people say Broncos don't have depth. I would say they only have depth. They just don't have a starter at like
they don't
80%
have
of the
That's a good.
roster.
I like how you phrase that.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
We'll
My-
get in.
okay.
No, please.
I was just gonna hit the deep cut. Or were you thinking wait?
Yep. On
There
the
we go.
other
There we
side, right now, a deep cut at Bet365. They, for the next 2 days, will be boosting Bo Nix to the Broncos. Broncos overwhelming favorites at -120, and we've got that boosted for you only at Bet365, where you see our logo, Nux on the front, our custom bets. Once this is done, Lil Birdie told me we've got a Nuggets one coming, so just stay tuned. Everyone, calm down. Calm down, yeah.
Do a
Hank.
s- a
Stay
sweep?
back, Hank.
Give me
Stay
this-
back.
I haven't
It's
taken the sweep
coming.
yet, please.
It's coming.
Spidey senses
so
are
Minus
tingling.
1.5 games.
You better sign up now and get in on the fun. And when you sign up,
finals?
DNVR 365 is your code. Use it up. Have some fun. Get in on Bet365 and the DNVR custom bet and everything else we've got. Must be 21 plus. Physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
The playoffs are here. Playoffs.
They
You're going to
are.
want to watch the playoffs on Fubo TV, 140 plus live channels of sports shows, movies, and news. Stream live TV from any device. Watch the most Colorado sports for the lowest price, and you can start watching immediately with the free trial. No contract, no cable, no hassle. Just sign up and start watching. You're going to get everything you need, including Rockies coverage all season. You're going to want to have access to ESPN with the Nuggets starting on Saturday. Watch all your favorite sports, including the Colorado Rockies with Fubo. Go to FuboTV.com/DNVR. Sign up for 15% off of your first month of Fubo Pro. Don't miss out on the playoffs.
Rocky's channel right there for you. Okay. What crazy names y'all throwing at me? Start us off.
First of all,
you're the crazy
Fisk was the
content.
guy who I really liked who just could make my cut, which is kind of cheating. But the other one,
It's
Tyler,
not a sneaky dog, though.
it's sneaky dog is a stretch, but
Yeah.
it was just like the guy who I wanted to talk about who wasn't in my top 3, but I should have known he was in a top 3.
Yeah, put him in your top 3 if you want to talk about him.
Oh, or just make him one of the sneaky dogs. Tyler Davis, Clemson.
Damn it.
Is that one of yours too?
Yeah, that was mine.
Big boy.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing though, big boy. Some of these other guys, big boy at 301.
Yeah.
Not like big boy at like 315, big boy at 301, but 52 starts at Clemson, was kind of a big time recruit. Turned out to be more of like a more run defender, more almost like Malcolm Roachy. I like him specifically for the Broncos because again, 52 starts, 23 years old. He's ready to come in and just be. I think you can kind of play around the inside. I think you can even play him at nose if you want. And he just fills a rotation spot. I don't know that there's huge upside there.
No, but I think he can just come in and fulfill an immediate role for
Exactly.
you. And while
You like him better than like Leonard Taylor in the late rounds? It's funny how Leonard Taylor's fallen to Miami nose tackle.
I'd put him in the same conversation. I mean, I struggle with a couple of these Clemson guys. We're going to talk about linebackers. There's a couple of guys you could put in that conversation as well because they all regressed once Venerables left. And I don't know how much to place on the system, how much of that is on coaching. Like I
know.
These
And
like I liked Davis a lot 2 years ago, and now I'm just like, I mean, yeah, I think he can be a nice little run stuff piece that you try and pick up in the 5th, 6th round.
Ruko Okoro was the same way.
Yeah.
I used to really love Xavier Thomas, out on the edge. He's kind of fallen off a cliff too. I didn't mention him.
Also,
J-Mike?
real quick, Jose in the comment saying Chris Jenkins and Horneroko. I don't know how to say that name, but in the Toyota chat.
No Chris Jenkins or Ruko Waiho.
I threw out Jenkins' name. I just don't like. I think he lacks versatility. I think he's kind of a one-trick pony.
And it's a good trick that the Broncos could really use.
He's not a bad fit in Denver.
I
It's
think
a good
good
point.
size.
He might
good
be.
size.
He'd probably be like my number 5
Good run defense.
defensive lineman.
Yeah, he's right around there.
Yeah, like he's good.
He's 4 or 5.
Yeah, he'd be a good fit for the Broncos.
I love Michael Hall. I think there are times where he shows first round upside. I kind of wouldn't be shocked if he snuck into the first round, might be a smidge rich, but snuck into the top 50. Former Ohio State guy. He's like the one guy that didn't go back, that didn't get the NIL bag, that kind of said, screw it, I'm going to the draft. He has really nice skills as an interior pass rusher. He's flashes that are better than my top 3 at times, and I think he's got better size. Just needs to put it together consistently. I think he could be a phenomenal 3-tech in this class. So I love him. And I'm very intrigued by Leonard Taylor. I think Jackson McKinley, the former, highly touted recruit
I think it's McKinley Jackson. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
It is McKinley
The
Jackson.
A&M from
From A&M. And then Mason Smith. Mason with 2 A's. The LSU defensive tackle had a phenomenal freshman year. Then out-injured all of his sophomore year. Comes back. Shows some really good run defense. And I think there's some untapped potential against the pass where a second year removed from the injury we might see more of. So I'm buying Mason Smith's stock while I can kind of buy low on it right now.
I like any of those guys too that especially if you're just taking a flyer that flashed in an LSU or Georgia or Ohio State, just they have so much talent that like it's very possible that one of these guys just kind of got swept under the rug in the mix.
That's exactly right.
I just combined 2 sayings there, but it's okay.
Linebackers, boys.
I went Colson 3. We starting with 3.
Yeah.
Junior Colson. Let's see if I can pull up
Michigan.
the numbers. Yes, the Michigan man.
I like him, man.
Yeah,
I really like JC.
A lot more thumpy than anything else, probably. 6'2", 238, 21 years old.
Sideline to sideline, right?
He can move, but in terms of like coverage,
He's more of a drop in zone coverage than
he's not like a
You're not
going to
put him on a
Alvin Kamara's being flexed out, put in motion. Oh, Junior JC, come on, follow that guy. No, recipe for disaster.
The reality is though, there's so few of those, especially these days, with how quick these running backs and tight ends are. You just got to put a nickel on
Fred Warner or nothing, right?
Yeah.
That's why you draft Cooper DeJean or something. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, to me, just polished 3-year starter now. Which is kind of crazy. We freshman All-American. Like you said, moves well, plugs things up in the middle, knows where he's going. Seems like he could be the captain of a defense, green dot guy. Like, just kind of a true modern Mike linebacker who
Good
maybe doesn't have
physicality.
the... Yeah, definitely.
I like him in the hole probably as much as just about anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's my 3-2.
Yeah.
He's my 1. I don't like this linebacker class. I'll be honest.
It stinks.
It's
terrible.
Part of it, I mean, and with some of the other guys, has to do with injuries and whatnot that I'm kind of dinging him a little bit. I just think he's the best, like, most consistent guy I watch. Like, I don't think the traits are through the roof. I think I don't know how much more the ceiling is versus what we've already seen. I feel that with a lot of these guys, though. At 3, I got...
And they're so niche. Every one of these guys, it's so niche.
Well, it depends on what you need. Like
you can typecast every single one like in 2 seconds.
Yeah. I got
but Colson, I think, could give you what like Josie Jewell gave you in coverage. He's not going to be a standout. He's not going to be a complete liability. It's about a C in coverage, He
probably runs a little
survive
better
with it.
than Josie.
I feel like that too.
Yeah.
At least just
he might be
if you're like mirroring a guy to the flat, that's where that might show up.
Too, right?
Yeah.
I like him downhill.
Definitely.
I do too.
But
there's nobody in this list
round?
that I'm going to like pound the table for, like mid to late second round for me. I wouldn't take a linebacker.
You'd approve though second round for Colson?
Yeah. Outside, I wouldn't take him in the top 45.
Yeah. That might be top 55 for me, but we're splitting hairs.
Yeah, I mean,
and we're almost out of the second by then, so it's like, kinda. Yeah, and Jose has those 4. We'll get to it, Jose. I don't think you have my top guy, which is interesting.
At 3, I've got Edgerrin Cooper of Texas A&M. I think he's a missile downhill. I also think that, like, I don't know if the instincts are quite there. Like, there are times where it felt like he was just completely lost out there. He's running around with his head cut off.
Is he an off-ball linebacker?
I don't know. Probably.
I think he's
so.
more of like a Sam backer and a 4-3.
And that's where I struggled with him is I just couldn't really pinpoint where to fit him. Because like you see a lot of people's linebacker rankings, he's their number one guy. And I think you like the athleticism. That makes a lot of sense. He just feels like a misfit to me. I don't really know where to take advantage of him.
That's the thing. I don't know. Is he Bruce Irvin? Is he just a good 2-down linebacker? There's big, like, skinny Kenneth Murray vibes.
Yeah.
I like that comp.
Is he better suited to just say, screw it, let's put you on the edge and have you play Nick Bonito style?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what Jose's saying here. I mean, he's fast as hell. So, like, I think if nothing else, he can rush the passer.
4.5,
He's
140.
fast as hell downhill.
Yeah.
That's why you don't want him like one-on-one with a...
Right, going
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah. That's not really the point of
And
him.
if all you're giving me is coming downhill, you're pretty skinny to take on O-linemen, snap in, snap
They kinda
out.
Or
already
you could
have
think
that.
of like if you're like running the Steelers defense, like that zone blitz type of stuff, like you're just sending him over and over
Now
again.
we're
You can
talking.
sit him back there
Now
a
we're
little bit if you
talking.
want. Obviously has the range.
And I was just say, Bruce Irving, he feels very Seattle-y in those 4-3
Yeah.
fronts, but
True.
the 4, like the one edge is more of a stand-up edge, the other edge is more of a 5 technique, you know, and you kind of find a spot. He's my 2. I love
I think
him.
he's my 2 also. Yeah,
He's
my 2.
very much a like YouTube responsibly guy.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
it's
I love
The
that.
highs are fun.
It's easy to love what you see, but you really have to have those combos with yourself of like, what's the actual real utility of these skills in an NFL setting?
Yep. 8 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles.
Yeah.
Like
Jose's talking about it on the Toyota chat. Yeah, we'll insert that right here. And yeah, Jose with Jose's in on my tees. That's as good a tease
I'm
as
also
I've
in on
had.
the tees.
I mean, my number one was not either, technically.
There you go. Oh, right, because he mentioned Coulson.
I know, but he was
One of
my
the 4.
He was my 1. He's saying he's intrigued that. Never mind. Go ahead.
Coulson's my 3. Edge Coop, my 2. What do you have going on right now?
Number 1. I have the
Who's
I
your
have the
2,
same
3?
so far.
Okay.
3
as
Coulson,
me.
2 Edgerrin Cooper.
Well, for you, Coulson's 1, Coop's 2.
Cooper's 3. I have Peyton Wilson of NC State at 2.
I have
Wilson.
I have him number 1. He's like
Yeah, the ultimate utility. He's also a YouTube
Very
responsibly.
responsibly.
Like,
And he's got the injury history, which
Oh.
scares. That's probably what pushed him. He probably would have been my 1 above Coulson without the injury history. But I don't know.
I just said fuck it. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
I believe
it. Dane Brugler, the Beast, incredible stuff. He
It's
has him with
incredible stuff.
double-digit surgeries since he left high school.
ouch.
Literally, ouch. Yeah, I mean, there's like
Nuts that he's that type of athlete, freak elite athlete.
absolutely, but just red flags everywhere. Like there's the injuries. He's already 24. He got busted by the cops. Like he got caught with like a fake ID, ran from the cops, got hit by a car.
When you have that speed and you're underage, how are you not running?
The car was faster.
Like, yeah.
The car was faster. And then
Cars will get you.
And then he
Cars
hit
will
underneath.
get you.
He hit underneath another car. Like the red flags are insane.
Can't say you're selling me on him as your number 1 off-ball linebacker.
How about this? Butkus Award winner. Does that help at all?
Bro,
Best linebacker
He'll
in the
murder
country.
some dudes in the open field.
Oh yeah, he'll murder dudes.
big dick Butkus guy over
Which
here.
of these do you like better? 138 tackles. Remember, this is all just this season. 138 tackles
Yeah.
in 12 games.
Yeah,
17 and a half tackles for loss.
yeah,
6 sacks. It's probably not that one. 1 forced fumble. Probably not that one. 9 pass breakups.
yeah.
3 picks.
Is that
Productive.
something you'd
That's
be
like-
interested in?
That's like in NFL. If Nikola Jokic was a linebacker, those are
stop
the freaking
it.
numbers.
Oh,
No, those
stop
are
it.
those are Jokic numbers for a linebacker.
Jose throwing out my deep cut Chad Mula.
Yeah.
That's a great one in the
That's
Toyota chat.
When are we gonna get Jose on this pod, man? This dude
Wow.
is like
He's on it.
He spits. Jose, we better see you at Breck for draft day, man, so you can hop on.
He's in Panama, so it might be kind of hard.
Just come to Breck next
There's
week.
a Breck brew for you.
You got a week.
He is one. That production's great and all. You watch the tape. The first 2 minutes, it's like, damn, this guy's hair's on fire. He's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The next 2 minutes, it's like, shit, how many? Is he going to make a play?
Another
Is he
guy that just disappears
running
for
around?
stretches.
Yeah, and how many plays is he ultimately making in the backfield? 16 tackles for a loss is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Edge
How about
Coop
17 and a half, the real number?
comes home. That's great.
Even better.
Comes home and makes those plays a lot more.
Oh.
And I wonder if he's more of a downhill guy, like sideline to sideline, dropping in coverage. He's kind of like, man, he moves well, but I don't see enough play.
I don't see the instincts. He's kind of out of position a lot.
Bit of a fugazi. He's out of my top 3.
Again, and I think that's fair. But again, when I was putting this guy, I was just like, fuck it. Because I don't love Adrian Cooper. I don't love Junior Colson.
No, they're not great.
I'm
Wilson's
dropping
sick.
him. I'm dropping him to 3, and I'm gonna put Coop ahead of him. Drake talked me into it.
Wow.
Hank
It's
might have
just
talked
it's
you
just
into
too
that.
many,
Yeah.
too many red flags.
I know, there's so many. But if
Red flag
they don't
city.
wind up mattering, he could be pretty sick.
Isn't that what everybody tells themselves before they marry the person with a million red flags?
I mean,
but what if?
I'm not saying take him at 12.
Hopefully not
we
married,
can fix
but
him.
like went
I'm
on
saying-
a couple, moved in with, right?
If you trade down, you wind up with pick 45, pick 50. You want to go Peyton Wilson? I'd be pretty hyped about it.
All right, Jose, put pause on renovating the visa as you speak because my number 1 linebacker is Cedric Gray, North Carolina.
Oh.
Moves different in coverage. Just moves
Okay.
different. There's a few cover linebackers in this class. There's the Washington guy who graded really well for PFF. There's a Lou Fowl, right?
My guy.
He'd count under that. The Notre Dame case kid. Trevin Wallace is kind of one of those. Jalen Ford is one of those who I considered out of Texas. But Cedric Gray, to me, separates himself. The Tar Heel just moves so naturally, so smoothly, drops in coverage effortlessly. He has that trait that I think is the number 1 trait at the position in the modern NFL. And he's the one who I would soft pound the table.
I think he's probably the best fit in Denver.
Also.
Like if we are talking about who's the guy you could maybe put on Travis Kelce, and I know Kelsey's getting older and that conversation is changing, but
it's not a bad point.
He's got the best raw pass coverage skills. He's a good tackler. His instincts are natural. Yeah, that's a miss on my part.
He's gonna leave you wanting for plays behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
That's just what you're doing.
He's not super physically imposing. Like he's not gonna murk you in the open field.
Yep,
but
smidge undersized, but not the way those other guys I meant. Those other guys are really like. I almost wonder, do I just want James Williams,
Exactly.
the big safety from Miami, instead of those guys?
Yep.
That guy, man, he's got something to him. I like him.
Yeah.
I like him a lot.
I think Ryan Russillo once said he's always hesitant when it comes to his evaluations with UNC guys because he's like, are they good or do they just look good in the uniforms? And sometimes I have that little bit of fear with them because like every UNC guy just looks sick to me.
USC does that to me. I'm just,
Yeah.
I need to
Got the
really
classic
settle
look.
down. That's
Vonda.
right.
Yeah. I do. Watching Cody Barton makes me a little bit scared of the guy who's like, he can really cover running game.
Sure,
like,
sure.
I do think there's something to like,
Especially with how poor Denver was against the run.
exactly. And you go back and watch and you're like, please do something. Like, does every tackle need to be after a 4.5 yard run? Like, or can, like, is it really worth it here? Or like you said, can we just get a safety to do this job and put him in when we need somebody to cover?
Right.
And that's why.
And you might, like, that might just be the Skinner role.
Also, exactly. Also, I think spending every day with Todd Davis has also made me devalue the importance of
Coverage.
He's kind of talked me into it. Linebackers just stop the run. You need your linebacker is there to make sure they can't run the football. Anything else to me is a bonus. And it's an important bonus, but I just don't think there's a lot of guys who look at and say like, he can cover, he isn't great against the run, and so we can just like we'll be happy with it.
It's really your front five, Straub.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd push back.
Right?
I'd push back on that after watching Gronk and Kelsey for 15 years.
But again, just put a safety in there. Like I just can't think of any
But
linebackers.
then they'll run on you.
Yeah.
That's the equation.
But I don't know that. Again, if the problem is this guy can't stop the run, what's the difference?
I mean, 144 tackles 2 years ago, 121 last year.
But
5 sacks this past season, 2 fumbles forced fumbles. Like, he's far from incompetent.
Yeah.
He moves well. He shoots gaps. He's like sneaky to block.
I just think that
I think Peyton Wilson's honestly easier to block than this guy.
really okay. I can't think of. I don't know if there's any linebackers around the league who I can think of who are so good in coverage that you're willing to just live with the run defense deficiencies.
Oh, I was going to say Warner, but he doesn't have
Exactly.
deficiencies.
And that's the thing. It's like I almost think it's just like a. If you have it, it's a plus. Otherwise, you got to do whatever else
space
does.
and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Where are you guys at on Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who's been brought up in the Toyota chat quite a bit? Did not have a great year.
Yeah. He
did not have a great 2 years.
He's one of my sneaky guys. I can't. Well, honestly, maybe more because I just want to talk about him than because I love him.
We have to talk about him.
But again, like he's that guy who
the name might just precede the actual play.
I think so, but also the name tends to work out.
I
think when you look at defenses, like that's
a good point.
We are
defensive
big
guys. The
believers
name,
in bloodlines.
yeah. And I again, at linebacker particular, like
can he do anything other than meet you in the hole or
No.
shoot the A gap? Like he's an old school.
He feels like a
backer,
1995 linebacker, not a 2024 linebacker.
But you do. I mean, again, for the Broncos, when you got Singleton and got Barton, like if you're platooning him with Barton, then maybe it does make some sense.
What's the soonest you'd be comfortable taking a player like Jeremiah Trotter Jr.?
like
It's a great
5th
question.
round?
It's
6th
certainly
round?
day
It's a
3.
great question.
It's certainly
day
day 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fourth would probably be a reach, but I do think he'd probably be a starter over Cody Barton. Again, maybe I'm just a Barton hater.
No, he probably is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these guys.
I think so too.
That's not saying much about.
It's not a high ceiling.
That's true.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I do think
Cody Barton, not a reason you don't draft a linebacker.
Singleton has some range too.
Might be a reason
Like,
you do draft one.
I like Singleton much more as a range run and tackle type guy than I do as like a plugger. I think Josie was
I'd agree.
that plugger. And so if you replace that with, and obviously they want to make some changes and you don't want coverage liabilities, which you would be. And if you're Sean Payton, you see Jeremiah Trotter out there, it's like, okay, let's get Alvin Kamara or somebody lined up against him and let's just abuse this. And that is probably a thing that's never going to change. But I do think on the first 2 downs, there's viability, at the very least. With maybe a little upside to get some TFLs up the middle too. Okay.
Can you just find that in a taxi squad though? Isn't that like literally a street free agent? Basically, the skills you're trying to find, they are a dime a dozen.
They are a lot easier to find. They're definitely a lot easier to find. But at the same time, like, I do think that's a player that they need to add. And if you're using a 5th, 6th round pick to grab him, I think that's worth it. Get him cost control.
For sure.
Plug up those A gaps. And if he hits hard enough to force some fumbles, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think Tommy Eichenberg could be that guy late, day 3, the Ohio State guy, kind of some 2 down versatility. And I've mentioned Jalen Ford. So Jalen Ford's kind of one of my dogs with Ulo Fisho, the Washington guy, but PFF kind of ruined that since they're big fans.
I'll throw out as a deep cut Easton Gibbs, Wyoming, staying true to my brand.
I knew that was
I like
coming.
his versatility.
Yep.
I don't think he has the ceiling of a Logan Wilson, but I think he might be a better pro prospect than Chad Muma was a couple years ago.
That's saying something.
I like him in coverage. He's a sure tackler. I do wonder how much more is there, but I think he's, if nothing else, a special teams contributor, a guy that could be, a 2 down player for you. And I think the value of where you could add him, I think he's a starting linebacker in the NFL that you can get probably in the 5th round.
Yeah. And I mean, somewhat local, so they might be looking at him already,
Which, love the local ties.
Yeah, for sure. Did I miss anything?
No. Also, just kind of crazy. I just have the numbers pulled up. Jeremiah Trotter, 8 pass breakups this year. Peyton Wilson had 9, which is more. Nobody else ranked in front of him has 8 or more.
What's that? Pass
PBUs.
Breakups for Jeremiah Trotter. And he's actually had 8 in back-to-back years.
4 times as many as I would have guessed.
Exactly. Just kind of a weird number.
I wonder how many of those are at the line of scrimmage.
Which, hey,
But
Still
like,
counts,
I'll take it.
yeah.
just dropping in that shallow zone, that underneath zone, he can do that.
Yeah.
He can do. I mean, sometimes guys like that who are so good coming downhill, you just
Get your hands
put them
up.
a little shallow, and then all they have to do is read and react. They'll come downhill like a bat out of hell. They can do that.
Second most pass breakups of anybody in the class behind Peyton Wilson.
Barrett Carter, I'm surprised didn't declare, the other linebacker at Clemson. Because I think we would have been talking about him a decent amount today.
I imagine he's a guy that got prioritized pretty high in terms of the NIL situation.
I think you're right.
Clemson.
Especially, you got to remember, too, that a lot of these guys will use spring ball to evaluate. And then
it's true.
Let's see what opens up at Georgia. Let's see what opens up at Texas.
That's true.
Some of these big collectives.
You can grind through a lot of these prospects by simply, watch FSU tape. You'll get Fisk and Verse out the way. Watch Texas. You'll get the 2 D tackles and Jalen Ford.
Watch Bama, Texas. You can see like half of the top interior prospects on both sides.
Going against O-linemen in this draft and next draft will be worthwhile. Clemson, watch that defensive front. Catch some Nate Wiggins. There's plenty to watch.
Michigan, obviously.
Put on that Drake May tape. Drake May throws a dime against Clemson.
Champ Bailey was only 184 pounds when he got drafted. I
didn't know that.
It just kind of...
What did he end up playing at, 195?
Definitely closer to 200.
Right? It would have to be. But then you think back, and it's like they have those big pads on back then. Like, maybe he was a little skinnier.
He looks skinny when you watch him at Georgia, especially like when he would be running receiver routes, catching balls from Mike Bobo.
The reason I looked into that, though, was because of Nate Wiggins, because they both ran a 4.28. I was like, 4.28, but... Because I was writing it, and I was like, same as Champ Bailey.
That's a dangerous conversation.
But it wasn't like he's similar. It's like the point was, but Champ Bailey did it at this weight. And then I looked at the weight, and I was like, huh. It was just kind of one of those things that like...
Jesus walked on water too, but we can't all.
It's true.
That was dumb.
Champ,
what if I could?
The greatest. Thank you to Raising Canes. We will be back, a little double dose of Draft Pod for you tomorrow, and then 2 live shows, a recap show. You will see a lot of us. We're counting on Jose being in the Toyota chat. We're counting on all of you tuning in. Leave us a thumbs up on the way out. Hankster, J-Mike, Yaya behind the sticks. Always an absolute pleasure. Be back next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.